Good morning. I'm Marissa Henley, and I am a cancer survivor and an author of Loving Your Friend Through Cancer. And I also blog at www.marissahenley.com. And I am here today to talk to you about what not to say to a friend with cancer. I have been the person going through cancer. I was diagnosed with a rare cancer 6 years ago. And so I've been on the receiving end of people trying to give support. And I'm doing a great job for the most part, for sure. And I've also been the friend who's trying to figure out what to say to someone who's going through cancer or something else that's difficult. So I know how hard it is. And I'll confess to you, I have been the one who has wanted to dodge somebody in the school pickup line or in the church lobby or the grocery store because I don't know what to say when someone's going through something hard. And I think we all have this fear sometimes, and it holds us back from reaching out to people who need our support because we are afraid we're going to say the wrong thing, we're going to stick our foot in our mouth. We don't want to make their pain worse by saying something that's going to be hurtful instead of helpful. So sometimes we just don't say anything at all. But our friends with cancer desperately need our support, and they need our compassionate, caring words, and we want to do that the best that we can for them, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to give you 3 things not to say to your friend with cancer, and then I'm going to give you some ideas about what to say instead. So we're going to jump right in. The first thing to not say to your friend with cancer is this: let me know how I can help. All right, so I know you guys might be groaning when you hear me say that, because if you're like me, you have said that to everyone that you've ever known that has cancer, right? Let me know how I can help, right? We want to help, and we're sincere when we say it. But here's a couple of problems with saying that. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I was completely overwhelmed. It was like my brain just totally turned to mush. I was on the phone all the time with supporters, friends, people wanting to help me, saying, let me know how I can help. I was on the phone with doctors and nurses. I was at doctor's appointments. I was trying to get my household in order before I started chemotherapy. And when someone said, let me know how I can help, it was really hard for me to connect the dots between a need that I had and their offer of help. And I was like trying to match them up, and my brain was too overwhelmed and I just couldn't do it. But what I saw was that if they made a really specific offer of help, it's kind of like, here's my need, and you want to try to get as close to that target as you can with your offer. And when they would get really close, it wouldn't be easy for me to connect the dots and say yes. So here's an example. Instead of saying, hey, I'd like to bring you a meal sometime, that kind of puts the ball in her court. And if she wants a meal, then at some point she might have to say to you, hey, I'd like my meal now, which she's probably not going to do, right? I know I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that to someone, even if they had offered to bring a meal. But if you say this, hey, I'm going to bring you a meal next week, would Monday or Wednesday be better? Now, all you're asking her to do is to choose between Monday or Wednesday. And that's really easy, right? So you've brought your offer really close to her need, and she can connect the dots really easily and say, yes, Monday would be great. Thank you so much. So if you make the specific offer, it's going to make it easy for her to take you up on it. If you're not into bringing food, another way you could do this would be to say, I notice I drive past your neighborhood every day on my way to work. I would love to pick up your kids and take them to school anytime that's helpful. Or maybe every Tuesday and Thursday, I could do that for you just to kind of lighten the load. Or you might say, I have some free time this Friday. I could come over in the afternoon if it would be helpful for me to clean your house or run some errands for you, or maybe change some sheets and throw them in the washer for you. So again, you've told her a really specific time that you're available, and you've given her some ideas of things that you're willing to do, because she needs to know, like, when can people help? What are they willing to do? And then she might say, oh yeah, actually I do have some errands that I need to have run for me. Or, oh yeah, my in-laws are coming next week for my chemo treatment. It would be awesome to have someone strip the guest bed and throw those sheets in the washer. So you're trying to figure out what needs might she have. Let her know very specifically what you can do and when you can do it. All right, there's this one disclaimer I want to give to this. You might call your friend and say, hey, I can come over Friday afternoon and change the sheets for you. And she might say, no, thank you. And then you're going to think, that Marissa Henley was a liar. What was she telling me to do? It didn't work. So the other thing about when you've just been diagnosed with cancer is that it takes some time for you to be willing to accept help. I don't know about you, but I want to be the strong one in my friendships and relationships. I want to be the one helping others. I don't want to be the one who's weak and sick and needing help. And when I was first diagnosed, it was a really hard adjustment for me to make. It took me some time to be willing to accept help, and your friend may still be there. She also might be trying to figure out who's sincere with their offers of help and who's not, because remember, we're all saying, let me know how I can help. So she's probably hearing that from everyone she knows right now, and she's trying to figure out who really means it and who just doesn't know what else to say. But I promise you, if you repeatedly make those specific offers of help, she's going to realize really quickly that you mean it and that you really want to help her. And when she's ready, she's going to take you up on it. So if it takes a few times, just keep trying. Just keep letting her know with these specific offers. And I know she'll at some point be ready to receive the help that you're trying to give to her. All right, so that's number one. Don't say, let me know how I can help. Okay, the second thing that I want you to not say to your friend with cancer is to not give medical advice. And I know I'm probably stepping on some toes when I say this, but I'm going to go there because I think it's important. I think that it's best to not tell your friend about a supplement that you've read about, or a brand new treatment that you saw online, or a certain type of diet that you think would be beneficial for her as she's going through treatment. And there's a few reasons why I say this. One reason is that it can really feel like a lot of information overload to your friend. Remember how I talked about how overwhelmed I was when I was diagnosed? Well, part of that was information overload. And when I was getting ready to start chemotherapy, I'm not kidding you, they gave me a binder that was like this thick, talking all about the chemo drugs I was getting, the side effects that I might experience, things to do to help with those side effects. I was taking all kinds of medications and things to try to combat the side effects from the chemo. Then I was on a clinical trial, and when you're on a clinical trial, you have to really be careful with other things that you take because you don't want to interfere with the research that they're doing on the experimental drug. So what I'm saying is just it's really complicated. And I had a team of doctors. I had so many doctors that to this day, I can't even tell you all of their names because there were just so many people involved in my medical care, and they had all gone to school for a really long time to know exactly how to treat the type of cancer that I had. And in their free time, they were reading the latest research and talking with other doctors about how to treat the cancer that I had. And so I needed to try to block out everything else and just do what they were telling me to do, because that was overwhelming as it was. So you don't want to contribute to the information overload that your friend is experiencing. You can let her doctors be the doctors. And then if she wants to do alternative medicine alongside that, that really just needs to be her choice. And she knows that's available. Like, we're all aware of that stuff. We all are reading the same internet. And so she can choose to do that on her own, but kind of leave that up to her. Another problem with giving medical advice is that your friend might feel like you're trying to fix her situation, when really all she wants you to do is to love her and support her in it. And so if she says, oh, I'm just feeling so nauseous from chemo last week, and your response is, hey, have you tried this thing? That could make her not feel heard and make her feel like you're just trying to fix her. And we all know that we don't really enjoy that response when we're suffering or hurting. We want people to give us their compassion and their empathy, and to let us know how much they care about us. And so I think that would be a better response, is, I'm so sorry you're feeling sick. I'm praying for you. I'll bring you some chicken broth if that sounds good, but to not be trying to fix what she's going through with our advice. The other issue with giving medical advice is that she may not choose to take your advice if you give it. And then she might feel really awkward about it, or she might wonder if that's going to hurt your feelings. And the last thing that she needs to worry about right now is hurting your feelings, right? She needs to just try to get through what she's going through. And so she might get suggestions from lots of different people. And she might get lots of suggestions. She might get lots of suggestions that conflict with each other. And she's trying to sort through all that along with what her doctors have told her. And that's just really hard to do. So, for example, maybe you have forwarded her 5 articles about how cancer feeds on sugar, which I don't think there's really a lot of scientific basis for. I'm not saying that cancer feeds on sugar, but let's say you read that on the internet and you sent that to her. But then she went to her doctor, and her doctor said, you know what, you're losing too much weight from the chemo. So yes, eat your fruits and veggies that are good for you, but I also just want you to eat whatever sounds good at any time because you need to not lose any more weight. So the next time you see your friend, she's chowing down on a Snickers bar, and she's really enjoying it. And then she feels really awkward because you've told her to not eat sugar, but she's trying to follow her doctor's advice and not lose any more weight. And so we do not want to put our friends who are going through cancer in any position that's going to make them feel awkward around us. We want to be a safe place for whatever they're doing as they're trying to get through their cancer treatment. So I've probably gone over this a little too much, but those are just some reasons why I would suggest not giving medical advice. Okay, so let's say that you're listening to this and you're screaming at your laptop right now going, but Marissa, I have a thing for her that really could help because I have a family member that went through this same treatment last year and this thing really helped her and I really want to tell my friend. Are you really saying I can't tell her? Okay, if that's the case, here's what I would do. The first thing to keep in mind is I want you to only share the information if your family member, or maybe it's you who went through cancer, if that person is doing well today, right now, they survived the cancer, they're doing great. That's the only situation in which you would want to share any information about that person with your friend going through cancer. That's a whole nother topic. They don't want to hear about somebody who has passed away from cancer right now. Okay, but if you know of a situation and the person is doing well and this thing was really helpful, then you might send an email to your friend and just say, hey, my Aunt Susie went through that same chemo last year and she found some things that were really helpful to her. If you ever want to hear about that, just let me know. I'd be happy to tell you. And that's it. You put the ball in her court and you let her decide if she wants the information, then she can ask you. Okay? So number 1 was to not say, just let me know how I can help. Number 2 was to not give medical advice. Number 3, and I want you guys to promise not to X out of this video when I say this. Hear me out on this one, okay? Number 3 is don't say God has a plan. Do not say the close cousins of God has a plan, which are God is in control and God works all things together for good. Now, some of you watching this video don't believe that those things are true, and you would never say those things to a friend with cancer. But some of you do believe that those things I just said are true, and you're wondering why on earth I would say not to say that to your friend with cancer, because you thought you knew me, and you thought that I knew that those things were true. And you're right. Absolutely. I believe wholeheartedly that God is in control, that He has a plan, and that Romans 8:28 is true, that God works all things together for the good of those who love Him. And so I cling to those truths. They are deeply important to me. There are a lot of days that I don't know that I could get out of bed if I did not believe that those things were true. So hear me saying that. Yes, absolutely, I affirm the truth of those statements. But I have learned over the years from experience of saying those things to people who are hurting and needing to go back later and ask for forgiveness, because I have learned that those things do not bring comfort to our friends in most situations when they're really hurting, and those raw emotions they're having to wrestle through. And I've been there because when I had cancer and when I was walking through that situation, I did believe that God was in control and God had a plan. But y'all, I could not for the life of me figure out how His plan could possibly be good if that meant that my daughter lost her mom before she turned 2 years old. I could not wrap my brain around that, and I had to wrestle through that on my own. And it wasn't going to help me wrestle through that and come out on the other side of trusting the Lord and His plans for my children. It wasn't going to help if people were preaching at me. It was something I had to wrestle through with the Lord. I needed my friends to just speak words of comfort and love and support to me. So I've learned that these things are true, that there's a time and a place to speak them. And that if we say them at the wrong time, they're going to feel like a Bible verse Band-Aid that's just getting slapped on our friend's wound when it's this gaping hole that's raw and bloody and hurting, and it's just not going to be helpful. So, and here's another thing. When I've heard this from multiple cancer survivors and caregivers, that when we say to them, God has a plan, here's what they hear us saying. It sounds to them like we're saying, what's wrong with you? Why haven't you gotten over this yet? If you would just believe these things about God, then you would feel better. Now, I know, like, you guys have hung in with me in this video for this long. You would never say that to your friend with cancer. You clearly care about her, and you want to say supportive, caring things to your friend. I know you would never want her to hear you saying those things, but that's what she might hear if you say God has a plan. And so what do we do instead? Because we're watching our friend, and she's upset, she's hurting, she's trying to figure out what's happening. And we do want to say things that are comforting. So what I would suggest is you may consider sharing the truth of God's word and his promises and who he is with your friend in certain situations. But just choose those verses carefully and choose the time carefully. Just use prayerful discernment in this situation. There's not an easy answer or formula to this. But I have found that verses that talk more about God's comfort or his presence with us are more beneficial. So maybe Psalm 34:18, that's one of my favorites. It says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." If you're a close friend, you might even ask her, are there any truths about the Lord or any scriptures that are bringing you comfort right now? And she might say, yeah, I can't understand what he's doing right now, but knowing that he loves me brings me so much comfort and peace. And there's a clue. So you can start sharing verses with her about God's love and know that that's going to be comforting to her. Or she might say, there's nothing. Like right now, I'm just struggling. I don't get this. I don't get what God is doing, and I'm just angry. And if she belongs to the Lord, he's going to work that out in her heart, and you can trust him with that, and you can just say, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I love you, and I care about you. I'm praying for you. And can I bring you dinner on Monday or Wednesday next week? Right? Okay. So those were our top three things. To not say, just let me know how I can help. To not give medical advice. And to not say religious platitudes like God has a plan or God is in control. Now, I do want to say that at this point, some of you are going, oh no, I have said all of these things to my friends with cancer. We're just going to let that go, right? The past is in the past. We're not going to worry about that. We're going to just move forward. And I also don't want anyone to feel stressed, like, okay, now what were the things I'm not supposed to say? And then get paralyzed and frozen and not reach out and say anything. It's better to just reach out with support, even if you're going to get it wrong, and even if sometimes things are going to get weird and awkward because you don't know what to say, and she doesn't know what she even wants you to say, because the reality is there are no magic words that you can say that are going to fix what she's going through right now and how painful it is. And so be willing to risk the awkward and just keep reaching out with your support, and I know that she's really going to appreciate that.